If you're queer, transmasc, intersex, or part of the SWANA diaspora, this video is for you. But it's not about you, it's about your ancestor. Their name was Asushunamir. In 668 BCE, a scribe in the Library of Ashurbanipal carved that name into clay tablet BM K.162. The god Ea created them for one job: rescue a trapped goddess from the underworld. They were neither man nor woman, and the tablet does not call them a mistake. The reason you've never heard their name is the same reason a stranger thinks they get to question yours today. I'm writing this as an ally, not a descendant. We are going to fix the first thing. The second thing gets lighter after. Before I drop another name on you, let me ground this. Because the second a video about Mesopotamia opens with thousands of years ago, half the audience checks out. So here is the only number that matters first. The goddess at the center of this story, Inanna in Sumerian, Ishtar in Akkadian, same goddess, two languages on top of each other, was worshipped continuously for roughly 3,000 years. 3,000. Christianity is 2,026 years old this year. Inanna has a 1,000-year head start on Jesus, and her main temple in Uruk, the Eanna precinct, was already standing around 3,500 to 3,100 BCE. That means by the time the scribe, in 668 BCE, the guy from the Hook, Library of Ashurbanipal, sits down to carve tablet BM K.162, he is already writing about a goddess older than his own civilization. He is the latecomer. He is us. Looking back. Trying to keep the names. Quick map for the next 16 minutes. 4 empires sit on top of each other in this region: modern Iraq, parts of Syria, parts of Iran, Sumer, then Akkad, then Babylon, then Assyria. 2 languages: Sumerian first, then Akkadian. The Sumerian story of Inanna descending to the underworld, we will get there. That is where your ancestor lives, survives in a text scholar's catalog as ETCSL 1.4.1. The Akkadian version, the one with Asushunamir by name, sits in Ashurbanipal's library. That is the where and the when. Now, the harder part, the who. Because if you have only ever heard one English phrase for women in these temples, I owe you 6. Victorian translators flattened at least 6 Akkadian and Sumerian terms into one English phrase: sacred prostitute. 6 different words, 6 different jobs, 6 different temples, 6 different levels of property rights, inheritance rights, religious authority, 1 slur. The math doesn't add up because it was never supposed to. Stephanie Boudin, in The Myth of Sacred Prostitution in Antiquity, Cambridge University Press, 2008, spent an entire book taking that phrase apart. We have 3 minutes. Let's go. Harimu. Julia Asante, in Ugarit Forschungen Volume 30, 1998, peer-reviewed, page 5 onward, argues harimu does not mean prostitute. It means a single woman with legal control over her own household. Not a profession, a status. Independent, untethered to a husband or father. Kazeru, attached to the Ishtar temple, function uncertain. That is the honest answer, function uncertain, and the people who tell you otherwise are guessing past their evidence. Same playbook, different costume. Kadishtu. The word literally means the dedicated one, or the holy one. Religious dedicate, tied to temple service. Was she a sex worker? Almost certainly not in the Victorian sense. Was she a priestess? Closer. The Hebrew Bible cognate, kudisha, got the same Victorian smear treatment. Same machine, naditu. Hold this name. We come back to her at minute 11. Naditu means fallow, childless religious women dedicated to the sun god Shamash, mostly at Sippar, between roughly 1,880 and 1,550 BCE. They lived inside a walled compound called the Gagum. They owned property. They ran farms. They made loans, woman to woman, with interest, on contract. Martha Roth, in Law Collections from Mesopotamia and Asia Minor, Society of Biblical Literature 1995, transcribed the Code of Hammurabi paragraph 178, and naditu inheritance rights are right there. On stone, ishtaritu, devotees of Ishtar, often grouped with kurģara and galatura, and that is the rabbit hole I am about to drag you into in 6 minutes, because in that group sits the figure from the Hook. The one without a gender. Asushunamir, šamḥatu, temple woman of Ishtar. Most famous one by name appears in the standard Babylonian Gilgamesh, Tablet 1, around line 200. We come back to her at minute 13. Andrew George, Oxford 2003, will be our translator. Quick note before we keep moving. For the next 13 minutes I am citing Barani, Sverd, Peled, Asante, Roth, George, Boudin, and Hella. I am not citing Herodotus. Just for the record. And one more thing before we leave this list. The naditu women, the ones with the inheritance rights, the property, the farms, they owned slaves. Multi-generational female wealth, yes, built on someone else's unfreedom. We are not going to laugh that off. Hold it, keep walking. Around 450 BCE, a Greek tourist named Herodotus walks through Babylon and writes one paragraph, Histories, Book 1, Chapter 199, claiming every Babylonian woman has to sit in the temple of Ishtar once in her life and sleep with a stranger for money. One paragraph. No tablet, no name, no witness. And I want you to remember this is the same guy who reported, with a straight face, that India had giant gold-digging ants the size of foxes, and that sheep in Arabia had tails so long they were carted around on little wheels. Reporting standard, not great. The narrative stuck anyway. For 2,500 years. Fast forward to 1872. British Assyriologist George Smith stands in the British Museum, decodes the flood tablet, and suddenly cuneiform is everywhere. But the translators reading the next round of tablets, Victorian, Anglican, deeply anxious about female sexuality, see harimu, naditu, ishtaritu, and choose one word for all six, the one Herodotus handed. And in 2026, when Gail Rubin's 1984 essay, Thinking Sex, maps what she calls the charmed circle, the inside list of acceptable bodies, the outside list of degraded ones, sex workers, trans people. Queer SWANA folks all land on the outside. Same playbook, different costume, that is the villain chain. But here is the part Herodotus never wrote down. The part with a being who was neither man nor woman. The one who got the goddess back. Inanna, the goddess of love and war, the one with the 3,000-year worship arc, decides one day to walk down into the underworld. Reasons depend on the version. Maybe to mourn. Maybe to crash her sister's party. Her sister Ereshkigal runs the place. It does not go well. At 7 gates, Inanna is stripped. Crown, jewels, robe, every layer of divinity peeled off. At the bottom, Ereshkigal kills her and hangs her body on a meat hook for 3 days. Inanna Sukal, a kind of divine chief of staff named Ninshubur, runs to the high gods for help. Enlil says no. Nana, the moon god, says no. Only one god agrees to help. In the Sumerian text, he is called Enki, god of wisdom, freshwater, mischief. In the Akkadian version, his name is Ea. Same god, 2 languages on top of each other, exactly like Inanna and Ishtar. Ea fashions a rescuer, out of dirt under his own fingernail. And here is where I need to be very careful, because the 2 surviving versions diverge and pop history flattens them. The Sumerian Inanna's descent, catalogued ETCSL 1.4.1, says Enki creates 2 beings, the kurģara and the galatura. Gender variant cult personnel, named by category. The Akkadian descent of Ishtar, on tablet BM K.162 from the Library of Ashurbanipal, 7th century BCE, says AA creates 1 being. By name. Asushunamir. His appearance is bright. One thing on the record before we keep going. I am not claiming Asushunamir was trans in the 2026 sense of the word. That would be anachronism. What I am saying, and this is Ilan Peled in the Journal of Near Eastern Studies, 2014, plus C. Riley Snorton in Black on Both Sides, 2017, is that they were gender-variant temple personnel with a self-identification proxy. That is the careful version. Hold it. Here's the part the myth understands that 2,500 years of translators did not. Ereshkigal's underworld has one law: what crosses in must belong to one side. Living or dead, male or female, in or out. Asushunamir is none of those. Not man, not woman, not living, not dead. They walk straight through the gate, because the gate does not recognize them. Ea, god of mischief, remember, gave them one trick. Charm Ereshkigal. Make the queen of the underworld laugh. Make her grant a single wish. And when she does, ask for one thing only, the water skin, the water of life. Asushunamir charms her. Ereshkigal grants the wish. They sprinkle the water on Inanna's corpse hanging from the meat hook. She breathes. And here is where the Sumerian version and the Akkadian version part company for the second time. In the Sumerian, the kurģara and galatura escort Inanna out. End of mission. Fade to credits. In the Akkadian tablet BM K.162, Library of Ashurbanipal, the moment Ereshkigal realizes she has been outplayed, she turns on Asushunamir, and she curses them, by name. The full text, Benjamin Foster's translation, Before the Muses, 3rd edition, CDL Press, 2005 reads, May the gutter of the city be your food, may the sewer be your drink, may the shadow of a wall be your dwelling, may the threshold be your seat, may the drunk and the thirsty slap your cheek. A queer ancestor saves a goddess. The reward is a curse. Do not laugh that off. The pattern has a name. Savior then scapegoat. It is 4,000 years old. And it is the same machine that calls you degraded the second you stop being useful. Which brings us back to the projection mechanism. Same playbook, different costume. Because the second time this pattern runs, the costume changes religion. And the next translator does not speak Greek. 4th century CE. Eusebius of Caesarea, Christian polemicist, biographer of Constantine, picks up Herodotus 1.199 and aims it at Aphaca and Heliopolis, Mediterranean Roman provinces, not Mesopotamia. Vita Constantini, Book 3, chapters 55 through 58. And I need to be very direct here. The lazy version of this story says, Christianity and Islam dismantled Mesopotamian religion together. That is wrong, and it is Islamophobia adjacent. Abbasid scholars, al-Tabari, al-Biruni, al-Masudi, the House of Wisdom from the 8th to the 13th century, actually preserved Babylonian astronomy and medicine. We separate the two. Fast forward. 1872 Victorian translator picks up the Greek polemic, applies it to the new cuneiform decode, smears the Akkadian. 1978. Edward Said calls the whole machine by its name, Orientalism. And in 2026, queer Iraqi, Kurdish, Persian, Lebanese, Syrian, Palestinian descendants get told their ancestors don't have a history. For the record, I am citing Zainab Bahrani, Sana Sverd, Elon Peled, C. Riley Snorton. I am not citing Herodotus. Mike stays with them. Back to minute 4. Naditu. I told you to hold the name. Here is why. Roughly 4,000 years ago, in a walled compound, the Akkadians called the Gagum, in the city of Sippar, women were running multi-generational financial dynasties. With receipts, in stone. Naditu means fallow, not an insult. A legal status. Childless religious women dedicated to the sun god Shamash, mostly at Sippar, roughly between 1,880 and 1,550 BCE. They did not marry into their husband's family wealth. They could not inherit through children, because they did not have children. So Mesopotamian law had to invent a third path. And it did. Martha Roth, Law Collections from Mesopotamia and Asia Minor, Society of Biblical Literature, 1995. Paragraph 178 of the Code of Hammurabi guarantees naditu inheritance rights from their fathers directly, not through brother. Paragraph 110 separate paragraph. Hold it for a minute punishes a naditu who enters a tavern by burning her alive. Same code, same women. Inside the Gagum walls, these women owned property in their own names. They managed herds. They ran farms. They made loans, woman to woman, with interest. On contract tablets we can still read. Sana Sverd, in Women in Power in Neo-Assyrian Palaces, Routledge 2015, calls this, and I am quoting carefully, a hierarchical model. Power distributed sideways, not pyramid. Mesh. I know what the algorithm wants me to say next. Babylonian girlboss energy. 4,000 years before the glass ceiling. No, I am not doing it. Because the next paragraph of this story is not on a stele, it is on a sales contract. Naditu women owned slaves. Multi-generational female wealth, yes, real, documented. Built on top of other women's unfreedom. The compound walls of the Gagum protected the women inside. They were also the walls of someone else's labor. Who gets to be an ancestor? Is a harder question than, did women have power? Hold both at the same time. Keep walking. And the same pattern, the empowerment frame that hides a cost, runs through the most famous temple woman in the entire ancient world. Tablet 1. Line 202. šamḥatu. šamḥatu. Temple woman of Ishtar. The most famous one in surviving Akkadian literature by name. She shows up in the standard Babylonian Gilgamesh, Tablet 1, lines 202 through 207. Andrew George, Oxford University Press, 2003, Vol. 1, that is, our translator. And here is the part the wholesome retellings skip. šamḥatu does not volunteer. King Gilgamesh, same Gilgamesh, 2/3 god, 1/3 tyrant, hears about Enkidu, wild man, lives with animals. Threat. Gilgamesh's solution? Dispatch, send out as an instrument šamḥatu out to the watering hole, 6 nights and 7 days, after which the animals reject Enkidu. He has been civilized, by her labor, on a king's order. And here is the line pop history butchered for 50 years. After Enkidu changes, the tablet describes him with the Akkadian phrase, Rapish, Zasisa, broad of understanding. The root, Azasu, means to perceive, to be wise. Translations published in the 1970s and 80s called this Sumerian. It is not, it is Akkadian. George 2003 fixed that on the page. I am citing the fix, not the older error. Now, the question that keeps me up. Did šamḥatu civilize Enkidu, agent of progress, breaking him into language and beer and bread? Or was she an instrument the king dispatched and the tablet remembered for a job she did not choose? Hold both. Do not heroize her too fast. The frame that erases consent is the same frame that erases the curse on Asushunamir, which is exactly why the next woman matters. She did not wait to be dispatched. She wrote her own name, Enheduanna, around 2300 BCE. High priestess of Nana, high priestess of the moon god at the city of daughter of Sargon of Akkad, the first empire builder in human history, which means imperial daughter, politically appointed. I am not going to hide that. She wrote Ninmi, Shara, the exaltation of Inanna, a 153 line Sumerian hymn to Inanna, first reconstructed by William Hallow and J.J. Van Dyke. Yale Near Eastern Researches 3, Yale University Press, 1968. Modern reading by Sophus Hele, Iraqi-Danish scholar, Enheduanna, Yale University Press, 2023. 2 generations of receipts. Same poet. From Ninmi, Shara, her own words, "You are lofty like heaven, let it be known. You are broad, like the earth, let it be known." Shakespeare arrives 3,800 years late. The first poet with a name in the history of our species is a woman, writing about a goddess, signing her clay. She is not the first feminist. That word would not exist for 42 more centuries. She is something simpler, the first person who refused to be anonymous, and the clay kept the receipt. The projection mechanism, same playbook, different costume is still running in 2026. You do not need another lecture. You need 5 lines that fit in your pocket. Here. 1. Herodotus 1.199. The temple prostitution claim does not corroborate against hundreds of thousands of cuneiform tablets. Source: Stephanie Boudin, Cambridge University Press, 2008, Chapter 2. 2. Victorian translators flattened 6 Akkadian words into 1 English slur. The math is the receipt. Source: Julia Asante, Ugarit Forschungen, 30, 1998. 3. Eusebius targeted Roman temples at Ephaca and Heliopolis, not Mesopotamia. Abbasid scholars actually preserved Babylonian knowledge. Hard separate. Source: Eusebius, Vita Constantini, Book 3, Chapters 55 to 58. 4. Orientalism is a projection machine. Said named it in 1978. Source: Edward Said, Orientalism, Pantheon. 5. The 2026 charm circle that calls anyone outside the inside list degraded is the same hierarchy in a new costume. Source: Gail Rubin, Thinking Sex, 1984. In Vance, editor. 5 cards. 5 sources. Paraphrase them in your own voice. Hand them over when you need them. You do not owe anyone a footnote at dinner, but now you have 1/5 if you want them. To the queer Iraqi, Kurdish, Persian, Lebanese, Syrian, and Palestinian listeners on this line, your ancestors are not a 2026 phenomenon. A 4,000-year-old clay tablet carries their name, and it carries yours with it. I'm writing this as an ally, not a descendant. The mic was never mine. It's still with you. With Zainab Barani, with Sana Sverd, with Elon Peled, with Sophus Hele, with every auntie who held a name no English word could carry. Keep them, pass them, add yours when you're ready. History does not erase people. It only erases names. To restore one name is to restore an entire generation.